We will begin with the opening prayers. Sanje
Hola, so da number lenge something de.
Now, can you all hear me?
간다 조준도 언제는 나한테 실로를 잡아 강원수가 있는 제 이제면 예 년마다 나한테 제 나에게 나는 저게 로나다메 얘기한다 로하고니 그래서 탐지에게 노다게 해줘도 스미스 세계를 내고 예르시도 정한진 배서 이 시기에서 띵도 매매도 두전로 나마라 자기 니도 제가 봐요라마 시제가 키를 비고 예 저베도 비제나 뭐 예외도 먹으면서 그 유를 못 잘라 장자로 니도 제가 봐요네 마도 로를 좀 주고 니서 로가 좀 주르자 모두 좀 저러서 내는 좀 그러서는 이제 가지고 좀 말하면 예면서 술을 좀 추배견 저를 마신 배셔라서 왔는데 티버지 모르죠 무슨 자가 좀 도망도 저 실내심 하다냐마다 니금 좀 배셔라서 왔 다음번에는 니금 좀 배셔라서 왔는데 받는 거 장하는 거 나마가만 바징으로 이제 시시 배주 이담내 좀마 실내군이 저로 최경 배진 점래라 내주지 그배인도 라메도 이제 경험하는데 원에서는 말은 무슨 나게 저를 배면 되죠라 그리 신병관의 제성대 구성도 영으로 자도 나서 딱 드린 거 없어 봐들이야 아니 아주 망어 야르치기 다니마
So today is the 12th day of our Ngok summer teachings.
아주 근디하게
So on this 12th day, I'd like to wish all the lamas, chulkus, and teachers at our monasteries and nunneries, all the members of the Sangha, all of the students associated with our Dharma centers, as well as everyone from all different areas who are listening to the teaching. I would like to offer you my welcome. Yesterday, I began to speak about the deeds of our teacher, the Buddha Shakyamuni. So yesterday, I gave a brief introduction to his deeds from taking birth into practicing austerities. And so today I will continue speaking about the life story of the Buddha.
다들이야. 상계 남자는 어를 쉬운데 에네.
And speaking about the life of the Buddha, first I'd like to speak about this. Now, Prince Siddhartha had spent 6 whole years practicing austerities. No, just in terms of the even disregarding the difficulties physically, these are hardships that are hard for us ordinary people to even begin to conceive of. And he underwent these. But no matter how many ascetic practices and austerities he underwent, he was unable to achieve the state that transcended the world or to realize the actual nature of things. And then he remembered something that happened when he was young. And this is something I mentioned yesterday. He had gone with his father, Shuddhadana, outside of the city to go oversee the farmers working in the fields. And so this is in our Tibetan scriptures. It's called a place called the farmer's town, Shimbedrong. And so he went to see this, to this location. And when he got there, he sat underneath a tree and he sat there in meditation. And sitting under the tree, you could say he achieved the first jhana. He achieved the level of the first jhana and felt the pleasure of body and mind that's associated with the first jhana. And so he remembered this. He thought to himself, maybe if I did this way of practicing meditation that I did when I was young, when I was just a child, if I spend this whole time practicing austerities, then my body is just going to be hard on my body, but it's not going to have any other benefit. And so he stopped practicing the austerities. And he began to eat, we could say, coarse foods. In other words, he began to eat in order to, he had completely lost in the strength of his body, but to revive the strength of his body, he began to make some efforts towards this. Now, at that time, he had 5 companions or 5 people who were with him when he had been practicing austerities. When Prince Siddhartha began to stop practicing austerities and began to eat, what they thought to himself is, oh, this spiritual practitioner, Siddhartha Gautama, he used to be a prince, and so he must be attached to the enjoyments of being a prince. And so they thought that he had stopped practicing the path. So that was the impression that they had. And after that, they were all really disappointed in him, and they lost their confidence in him. And they thought, we're not going to stay with Prince Siddhartha. And so they left that place and went to Varanasi. Now, the forest where Prince Siddhartha was practicing austerities was near the Naranjana River, and so he stayed there. So he went to the Naranjana River and thought he would take a bath because if he hadn't eaten food for so long, forget about washing the body. And so his body was really quite filthy and unclean, and so he wished to bathe. Now, when he was bathing in the Nardojani River, he had spent such a long time practicing austerities that he had no strength at all. So he had so little strength that he was in danger of losing his consciousness, falling into a faint. When he was about to faint, then there was the daughter of a cowherd named Sujata. So there was a farmer named. So there was a daughter Sujata who was a cowherd. She's a daughter of a farmer, and her name was Sujata. And she saw him, and then immediately began to take care of the Buddha. And since she was a cowherd, she offered him some milk porridge. Now, this milk porridge is extremely beneficial for the for this. Now, and the reason is the milk porridge is very nutritious. Some sutras say that the gods added many beneficial medicines to it, but we can forget about this for the moment. If you just think about milk, it has a lot of nutritional value. And so when he ate it, it had a great beneficial effect on his physical state. And so for the Buddha, this Brahmin girl, Sujata, was a great kindness. This is similar in the story of Milarepa. Milarepa had become into a very sad physical state and had no strength, and he came to the point where he was also lost his consciousness, in fact. And then some hunters came and gave him some food to eat. And because they gave him food and he ate the food, and then his body gained some strength. So the nutrition in the food revived the strength of his body and the strength of his mind, and then he was able to meditate more and had even more superior experiences in meditation that he'd had before. And this is something that we speak about within our. So this is why he said in his Song of Interdependence that the meditator on the mountain and the sponsors who support them have the interdependence of awakening to Buddhahood together. And so so in this way, this girl Sujata was very beneficial to him. Now there are other explanations that it maybe have been someone other than Sujata who offered him the milk. But I do not need to speak about them more. And then the Prince Siddhartha went to another forest in the nearby area. And within this forest, there was a tree called an Ashwatha tree. So an Ashwatha tree is, he sat below this Ashwatha tree. And he sat underneath it in meditation and samadhi. Now, up to this point, before, the Buddha had been practicing the non-Buddhist methods of samadhi meditation. To say that, so before that point, he was primarily practicing the non-Buddhist practices of shamatha meditation. Then from them, after he had revived his body, then he began to meditate on the insight. And so if we're being audacious, we could say that he began the particular Buddhist meditations. And we developed the prajna of discriminating praja, he realized that the self, the atma, the self that is taught by the non-Buddhist, the permanent self-taught by the non-Buddhist does not exist, that it does not exist by nature. And when he realized this, then through this prajna of realizing the selflessness, he entered the jhana that transcends the world. And by sitting that, he was able to eliminate all of the afflictions and achieve the state of Buddhahood beneath this Ashvattha tree. So the Prince Siddhartha achieving Buddhahood was not any big ritual with a huge ceremony or anything. If you look at it from outside, he was sitting under a tree and there was nothing particularly special about it. Or you could say it was just a very ordinary situation. And it's in that situation that the Buddha achieved Buddhahood. Now, when we talk about an Ashvattha tree, so what is an Ashvattha tree? It's a species of tree, but later this tree became called the tree of enlightenment, the Bodhi tree. And the reason is that the Buddha achieved Buddhahood underneath this tree. So later this was called by the name of the Bodhi tree or the enlightenment tree. Now, when the Buddha awoke to enlightenment, what was the ultimate truth that he saw? Or what was the nature of things that he saw? So when you say he saw the nature of things, what is the nature that he saw? Ultimately, what did he know? This is a very big question. Now, there are many different in the four sections of the scriptures, that gives many different answers to this, but we don't have these four scriptures in Tibetan, and so that's a rather disappointing situation. And so some say that he saw the meaning of the Four Noble Truths. Some say that he realized the nature of the meaning of the 12 links of interdependence. Some say that through the four jhanas and the three awarenesses, he realized the meaning of the nature of things. There are many different explanations of how they are, but I don't think there's really much of a contradiction between them, because so at this point, since I'm primarily speaking about history, I'm not going to talk about those in detail. Now, the place where the Buddha awoke to enlightenment was later called Buddha Gaya, or the essence of enlightenment. And the stupa was built, and then it eventually became the most important Buddhist site for pilgrimages all over the world. And likewise, according to the southern traditions and the Tibetan traditions, say that the Buddha awakened to enlightenment in the Vaishakha month. And so this entire month is considered a very sacred time. But even within the Buddhist scriptures, there are slightly different explanations of it. But I do not need to speak about those in detail either today. Then following that, what he did is he turned the wheel of Dharma. Now, before I speak about turning the wheel of Dharma, so after the Buddha had reached enlightenment, or you could say after he had achieved seeing the nature of things as he had wished to do, there was no one disturbing him, and so there were no afflictions, and all the stains and obscurations were pacified, and so he rested in equipoise and utter peace, and he spent 7 days sitting in samadhi meditation underneath the Bodhi tree. Then after 7 days, he arose from that samadhi and he went to other trees And he continued, since he had achieved such the amazing state of complete and perfect awakening. So he sort of enjoying the experience of it, is feeling the experience of it. So since we haven't achieved complete and perfect enlightenment, we can't really imagine that experience. But actually, when we think about when we experience the pleasures of the sensory pleasures like form, scent, taste, and so forth, we get really tricked by them. But the Buddha had the experience of achieving the ultimate liberation, realizing the ultimate actual nature of things. And so this is an inconceivable experience, one that we can't even think of. But he experienced it, and he just spent 5 weeks sitting there just experiencing that feeling. And and after he'd experienced that feeling, what he thought to himself was, that this dharma that I've realized, this profound meaning that I have understood and known, even if I taught it to other people, they couldn't understand it. It's just too profound. It's just too far from them. Even if I teach it to other people, there's no way they could understand it. So the Dharma, there's no point in teaching the Dharma to other people. And he thought. And so at the beginning, he had more of a thought that he shouldn't teach the Dharma. However, you could say that this was like the benefit for himself. The benefit for himself is realizing the nature of things, achieving enlightenment. And so he had completed the benefit for himself, the most important benefit for himself. But once he had accomplished the benefit for himself, and he enjoyed the experience of it for a period of time, that took some time. And then when he kind of sort of arose from that profound feeling, and he kind of went out from that feeling, and then he had another thought, and the other thought was this: that he must subdue other sentient beings. He had accomplished the benefit for himself, he must bring benefit to others, and so he began to have this other thought as well. And when he thought about benefiting others, what is the best benefit for others? It is to teach them the Dharma. So, to explain the meaning that he had realized just as it is to others. And so this is to teach the Dharma, to turn the wheel of Dharma. So turning the wheel of Dharma, this is like an analogy, right? It's like a wheel. When you have a cartwheel, or like a car, the wheel on a cart, just when the car is going, it moves it keeps rotating all the time, right? And so this is the same with the wheel of Dharma. It's like an analogy for teaching the Dharma, and it's called turning the wheel of Dharma, but it really means just teaching the Dharma. So basically he thought to himself, I need to teach the Dharma to others. And he decided to teach. Now, what some scholars say is that at that time the Buddha had achieved Buddhahood and immediately had the thought of passing into nirvana and just entering the just complete expanse of peacefulness. And so when he had the wish to sort of stay in that state, they say it is possible that he had this feeling. Now, this is not a Mahayana question. This is come out of like a common Buddhist expression. So they said it's possible that he might have had this thought. And so when the Buddha achieved Buddhahood under his own power alone, and so as he sat there experiencing alone the peace of enlightenment, And so later, when there's a lot of talk about Pratyeka Buddhas and their deeds, it's probably is based on that experience that the Buddha had. So some scholars hypothesize that that is how the tradition of talking about Pratyeka Buddhas and the paths of the Pratyeka Buddhas began from that. Now, other scholars don't disagree, and they say that actually at the time of the Buddha, there were also sages who lived on their own. And so the origin for saying Pratyeka Buddha is based on those sages who are practicing Dharma alone. So this is according to other sages. So this is a different way than talk about Pratyeka Buddhas than our traditional way of speaking about them. Because in our Buddhist tradition, we speak about Pratyeka Buddhas, and so scholars wonder, what is the basis for saying Pratyeka Buddhas? What is the history? People wonder that. If we say, well, it happened in previous eras, in previous kalpas, then the scholars say, well, you have to look and say, what is the basis for this name? What is the place it could have come from? And so that's how they can speak. So this is very different, a bit different from our traditional way of speaking things. And it's important for us to take note of that. And then when the Buddha had decided that he was going to benefit sentient beings and teach the Dharma, and so the second step in this was to think about who would be best to teach the Dharma to first. You have to teach the Dharma. Well, who are you going to teach it first? And he needed to teach it to someone who could actually understand the profound Dharma that he had taught. If you were to teach the Dharma to someone who just couldn't understand anything at all, who couldn't understand at all, then it wouldn't be of any benefit. And so then he thought about who would be best to teach it first. And in the end, there are the 5 companions he had had when he was practicing austerities. They had been practiced the austerities together. They had a certain degree of practice. And they also had some sort of a connection. So he thought to himself he needed to teach to these 5 friends. And he thought that he needed to teach them, and if he taught them, he thought, well, and he thought to himself, oh, they'll probably be able to understand the profound meaning that I have to teach. And so he went to Varanasi. And so they went to Migadaya, the Migadava, the deer park in Sarnath. So these days we call it, these days we say Sarnath, but it's called the deer park in Migadava in originally. And so we went to that place to teach the Dharma to his 5 farmer companions. And so this, when he taught the Dharma to them, this is when the Sangha, the community of the Sangha first began. So that was that time the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha came at that time because the Buddha was the Buddha Shakyamuni. Then the Buddha actually taught the Dharma. And who did he teach the Dharma to? It was to the 5 companions. And so later we'd call them the good group of 5. And so these include the Ashvajit, and Kushkandinila, and so forth. So this place of Sarnath is like, we can go to Sarnath and still see the remains of this site. And there was also an Ashokan pillar with that Emperor Ashoka had erected that had a lion as its capital. And after India achieved independence, this became the symbol of the country of India. In any case, so the Buddha taught these 5 people, the good group of 5. He taught them the middle way, a way that didn't go too far off to either one side or the other, to the right or the left, but instead one that went right down the center. So taught them where they went, the middle way or the middle method. And he taught them what the four truths are. He introduced the meaning of each of these. And because of teaching these, then these 5 students realized that nature, became the Buddhist students, and achieved arhatship. So in terms of the Buddhist religion, this is like the first community or the first sangha. When we talk about the sangha, the noble sangha, this is what we mean. And so in this way, we had all 3 of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. There was a person named Yasha, and he was a householder, as well as his 2 parents and his wife. They all became students of the Buddha, and they became the first lay followers, the first male and female householders of the Upasaka and Upasika. And so these are the 5 people. And so it's said that Yasha later became an arhat. So that he achieved the level of arhatship while he was still wearing the robes of an arhat. So he first realized the nature while wearing the household. So this is where the quote of seeing the nature of things is what makes you the actual spiritual practitioner. It doesn't matter so it's like Yasha had not given up the householder, the clothes of householder, yet he realized the nature of how things are. And so in the outside, he was not a bhikshu, but internally, he actually was a bhikshu who had realized the nature of things. When I think about Yasha, he also had 4 friends who were very close to him. And there were also 50 other friends, and they all went forth and later achieved the state of arhatship. So when you think about the community, the fourfold community of the Buddha and the community of the Sangha grow larger and larger. And so when the Yasha and his siblings joined, or friends joined, there were 50 friends. And then what the Buddha said to his students is, you need to go and spread the Dharma, he said. You need to go benefit other sentient beings. And so he said this to his students. So the reason why he needed to say this is that the Buddha was doing whatever he could, using whatever methods he could, thought that if as many people as possible could realize the nature as it is, then they would be freed from suffering. And so that great compassion or the great loving kindness in his mind. And he sent his students in all directions to spread the Dharma all over and to benefit sentient beings. And so this is the advice or the instruction that he gave his students. And so from the very beginning, the Buddha had the intention of spreading the Dharma. And so this is another point that we actually need to really note. And this is an important thing for us to keep in mind. And the reason for this is that because at the beginning, the Buddha had this the idea of not wanting to speak the Dharma. Like at the beginning, he thought to himself, I can't teach the Dharma. Other people won't realize it. It's too profound. And so he didn't teach it. So at the beginning, he predominantly felt that way. But later, when he began to teach, then he thought, now that I have achieved the benefit myself, I need to do something to benefit others. And so at that time, and so if I teach the Dharma that must be taught to others, then if I'm going to benefit them, then they have to be taught the Dharma. So he had this profound understanding and began to teach the Dharma to others, it's like the Buddha's. It wasn't like the Buddha. The Buddha wasn't something where he realized inside immediately, I have to teach it to others. It's like he had to thought about it first. Usually, in most of us, when we think about something, when we understand, we have to say to something, look what I understand. We have to kind of show it off to others. I've understood I didn't understand before, we say. And immediately we kind of boast of it. We try to look, is there someone we can kind of find to tell this? We look for someone, we kind of get someone to listen to us. But the Buddha wasn't like that. Please wait a moment.
Oh, yeah.
And so the Buddha had this profound thought of teaching the Dharma, and he thought, who could I teach the Dharma to? What Dharma can be taught to them? And he had this very profound intention, and then only then he began to teach the Dharma. And the people he taught the Dharma, and he's first thinking about who can I teach the Dharma to first? He chose them. He chose people who should teach the Dharma, who needed to be taught the Dharma. It just wasn't everyone who met on the truth, not everyone who had a pair of ears. And so this is another crucial point. The Buddha teaching, spreading the Dharma was like a really profound intention. And you want to see is it going to benefit the others? And it wasn't like he was first going to say, I'm going to teach it first to others. I'm going to sort of show off to others or spread his own view, or so that his own tradition would spread everywhere. Now, that wasn't his intention, and it's important for us to keep this in mind. So now we will have a half-hour intermission.